Nobody knows what really happened to me." These were Rita Hayworth's last words before she lost her memory to Alzheimer's. After her death, a hidden vault revealed exactly what she meant, and it stunned everyone. Studio exploitation, family betrayal, and secrets so shocking that Hollywood tried to keep them buried. This isn't just another celebrity scandal. It's the story of how America's most beloved star suffered in silence for decades. Rita Hayworth was born on October 17, 1918, in Brooklyn, New York. Her real name was Margarita Carmen Cancino. Her father was from Spain and worked as a dancer. He brought Spanish dancing styles, like flamenco, to America. Her mother was an American with Irish and English roots. She had been a performer too, working as a Ziegfeld Follies girl. From the start, Rita's life was full of dancing and performing because of her family's background. Rita's grandfather, Antonio Cancino, was a famous Spanish dancer who ran a dancing school in Madrid. He started teaching Rita to dance when she was only 3.5 years old. She practiced every single day. Rita later said she didn't like dancing as a child, but she was too afraid to tell her father. Her childhood was mostly spent rehearsing, with little time for fun. When Rita was 8, she appeared in a short film called La Fiesta. Not long after, her family moved to Hollywood in 1927. Her father opened a dance school there, teaching stars like James Cagney. Rita grew up surrounded by show business, which shaped her future without her even realizing it. At just 12 years old, Rita began performing professionally with her father. They created a nightclub act called the Dancing Cancinos. Her father wanted her to look older and more exotic, so he dyed her brown hair black. To get around child labor laws in California, her father took her to perform in clubs in Tijuana, Mexico. These were adult venues, and she worked long hours. Because of her busy schedule, she couldn't finish high school. She only made it to the 9th grade. When Rita was 16, she was performing with her father at the Caliente Club in Tijuana. That night, the head of Fox Film Corporation saw her dance. He thought she had potential to be a star and invited her to a meeting. Rita was very shy and barely spoke, but Sheehan still arranged a screen test for her. She passed, and he gave her a 6-month contract with Fox. This was her first step into Hollywood. Rita started acting under her real name, Margarita Cancino. Her first roles were small, but she gained experience. She appeared in movies like Cruz Diablo and In Caliente. During this time, Hollywood often cast her as exotic characters because of her Spanish heritage. These roles didn't make her a star, but helped her learn the craft. In 1937, Rita signed with Columbia Pictures. This is when everything changed. The studio decided she needed a new look. They dyed her hair red to make her seem more all-American and raised her hairline through a painful procedure called electrolysis. This gave her a higher forehead, which was thought to look more glamorous. She also changed her name to Rita Hayworth, taking her mother's last name. These changes were meant to help her fit Hollywood's idea of beauty at the time. Her big break came in 1939 with Only Angels Have Wings, where she starred with Cary Grant. Rita Hayworth's journey to becoming a star started with a small role in Only Angels Have Wings in 1939. In the movie, she played Judy McPherson, the wife of a disgraced pilot. This role almost didn't happen because another actress was chosen first, but Harry Cohn, the boss of Columbia Pictures, believed in Rita and made sure she got a screen test. The director, Howard Hawks, loved how she looked on camera and gave her the part. Even though it was a small role, Rita stood out and people noticed her. The movie became a big hit that year, and soon after, Rita was on the cover of Life magazine. This exposure brought her more opportunities and set her on the path to stardom. Rita's dancing talent shined when she worked with Fred Astaire in two musicals, You'll Never Get Rich, 1941, and You Were Never Lovelier, 1942. At first, Fred wasn't sure about dancing with Rita because she didn't have much experience, but after just one rehearsal, he changed his mind. He said she learned faster than anyone he had worked with. Their first film together was a big hit, so they made another one. For You Were Never Lovelier, rehearsals were tough. They even had to practice in the attic of a funeral home. Rita once fainted during a hard routine, but she got back up and kept going. Fred was so impressed with her dedication that he called her his favorite dance partner ever, even over Ginger Rogers. These movies were a success and helped make Rita one of Hollywood's top stars. During World War II, Rita became an icon with a single photo. In 1941, a picture of her kneeling on a bed in a black lace nightgown was published in Life magazine. It wasn't meant to be a big deal, but the photo became incredibly popular among U.S. servicemen. Millions of copies were sent overseas, and she was nicknamed the redhead we would most like to be shipwrecked with. This picture made her a symbol of beauty and glamour, but it also created a public image that was hard for her to escape. In 1944, Rita starred with Gene Kelly in CoverGirl. This movie was Columbia Pictures' first big Technicolor musical and an important moment in Rita's career. Gene Kelly, who was still becoming a star himself, worked closely with Rita to create amazing dance routines. One of the most famous scenes, where Kelly danced with his reflection, was groundbreaking and took 2 days to film. Rita played two characters in the movie, showing her range as an actress. The film was a huge success, making over $3.5 million and proving that Rita was one of Hollywood's biggest stars. During this time, she married Orson Welles, and he often surprised her with champagne after work, adding joy to her busy life. Rita's most unforgettable role came in 1946 with Gilda. The movie made her a legend. Her first scene, where she flipped her hair and smiled while saying, "Me?" became one of the most famous moments in film history. In the movie, she performed a seductive glove striptease during the song "Put the Blame on Mame." It was so bold for the time that it caused controversy and even censorship in some places. The movie was a massive hit, earning over $3.75 million. But it also typecast Rita as a femme fatale. She once said, "Men go to bed with Gilda, but wake up with me," showing how much she disliked being seen only as a glamorous sex symbol. The impact of Gilda went beyond movies. Shockingly, in 1946, her image from the film was painted on an atomic bomb tested at Bikini Atoll. This was meant to honor her bombshell status, but Rita was furious when she found out. Despite moments like this, Gilda cemented her legacy as one of Hollywood's most iconic performances. Meanwhile, when Rita Hayworth was just 18, she married Edward Judson. Rita met Edward because of her father, Eduardo Cancino. Her father was desperate to push her career forward. He thought Edward had connections that could help Rita become a Hollywood star. It didn't take long before Edward convinced Rita to marry him. They ran away to Las Vegas and got married in a small, quick ceremony. This was a big change for Rita, who grew up in a strict Catholic household. She had spent most of her young life performing with her father's dance act and knew very little about relationships or the real world. The age gap between them was huge. Rita was barely out of her teenage years, while Edward was middle-aged. He acted more like a boss or even a father than a husband. Right after they got married, he started making big changes in her life. He promoted her aggressively, turning her from a dancer into a Hollywood star. But this success came at a cost. Judson controlled everything: her career, her finances, even her personal life. Rita later described it as slavery, not marriage. Despite her rising fame, Judson kept Rita penniless. He controlled her money, spending it on his own lifestyle and risky business ventures. By the time they divorced in 1942, court documents revealed that he had taken out loans in her name without her knowledge. Rita, who had earned substantial sums, was left with almost nothing. Judson's control went beyond finances. He decided which roles she took, dictated her daily schedule, and even pushed her to undergo more cosmetic changes. Worst of all, he offered her to studio executives in exchange for better roles. This left Rita emotionally scarred. Reflecting on that time, she said, "From the first, he told me I couldn't do anything for myself. My personality crawled deeper and deeper into a shell." Her struggles didn't end there. Rita's battle with alcohol began early in her career. At 17, while working on Dante's Inferno, she was introduced to drinking as a way to calm her nerves. By the time she married Judson, alcohol was becoming a problem, and he encouraged it. He believed it made her more compliant during meetings with studio executives. As her career took off, the pressure added to her drinking. On the set of You'll Never Get Rich in 1941, crew members noticed her frequent hangovers. Studio executives, instead of helping, enabled her. Harry Cohn, head of Columbia Pictures, kept her dressing room stocked with alcohol, using it as a way to control her. In private, Rita felt trapped. In a journal entry from 1943, she wrote, "I can't face the cameras without a drink anymore. The lights, the expectations, it's all too much." By 1946, during the filming of Gilda, her drinking caused delays on set. Still, she hid her struggles from the public, as the studio worked hard to protect her image. Rita Hayworth and Orson Welles had a love story that felt straight out of a movie. In 1942, while Welles was in Brazil, he saw Hayworth's face on the cover of Life magazine. Instantly captivated, he declared he would marry her. When he returned to Hollywood, he pursued her passionately. Their romance was fast and filled with excitement. Welles even included Hayworth in his Mercury Wonder show for troops, performing magic tricks like sawing her in half. On September 7, 1943, during Hayworth's lunch break from filming CoverGirl, Welles surprised her with a simple wedding at Santa Monica City Hall. Their only witness was Welles's friend, Joseph Cotton. No one, not even the press, knew about the wedding until the couple announced it later that night on Welles's radio show. They kept it a secret, partly because Columbia Pictures' boss, Harry Cohn, didn't approve, fearing it would hurt Hayworth's image. Their married life was nothing like Hollywood's usual glamour. Instead of a honeymoon, they went straight back to work. Welles encouraged Hayworth to explore literature and politics, pushing her to grow intellectually. She started to break away from her pin-up image, but studio executives weren't happy about this change. On December 17, 1944, their daughter Rebecca Welles was born after a grueling 18-hour labor that ended in an emergency C-section. Welles rushed to the hospital just in time and joyfully said, "She has my nose and Rita's everything else." In 1947, they worked together on The Lady from Shanghai, a noir thriller Welles hoped would save their failing marriage. The studio agreed to the project because Hayworth was the star, but Welles caused a scandal by having her cut her iconic red hair and dye it platinum blonde. The studio and fans were furious. Filming was tense, with Welles often demanding and cruel. In one emotional scene, he made Hayworth reshoot it 29 times, leaving her in tears. The film's famous Hall of Mirrors sequence took 11 days to film, using 2,500 pounds of glass. Despite the stunning visuals, the strain on their relationship was undeniable. Hayworth later said, "I guess I made it too realistic. He was the great love of my life, but on the screen, I had to portray a woman who hated him." Their marriage fell apart largely because of Wells's infidelities. He had an affair with 21-year-old Gloria Vanderbilt while Hayworth was pregnant. The betrayal continued for over a year. Wells was also linked to Judy Garland, a close friend of Hayworth, which hurt her deeply. On Hayworth's 27th birthday, she found love letters from Garland in Wells's study. The final straw came during the filming of The Lady from Shanghai in Acapulco. Hayworth caught Wells with a local extra in his trailer. Furious, she threw a film canister at him, barely missing his head. Filming stopped for 3 days while they tried to reconcile, but it was too late. Hayworth made every effort to save their marriage. She agreed to couples therapy, rare in those days, and even considered converting to Catholicism for Wells. But by November 1947, she filed for divorce, citing extreme mental cruelty. In court, she revealed that Wells had been absent for 347 days of their 3-year marriage. Their story began with passion and promise, but ended in heartbreak and betrayal. Rita Hayworth met Prince Ali Khan on July 3, 1948, at the Cannes Film Festival. She had just divorced Orson Welles and was drawn to Ali's charm and exotic looks. Their romance became a media frenzy, with photographers following them everywhere as they traveled across Europe. They married on May 27, 1949, in a wedding that cost $1.5 million, which is now worth over $17 million. The ceremony took place at Château de l'Horizon near Cannes, with more than 500 guests. They drank 600 bottles of champagne and ate 50 pounds of caviar. Rita's wedding gown, made by Jacques Fat, cost $40,000. French law required them to marry twice, first in a civil ceremony on May 27th and then in a religious one on May 28th. The wedding mixed Western and Islamic traditions, reflecting their different backgrounds. It was a global event, with Life magazine dedicating 14 pages to it. However, the Catholic Church called their marriage illicit because Ali was Muslim and had been married before. At the same time, Rita was 2 months pregnant, but this was kept secret. Rita's new life as a princess seemed like a dream, but was full of challenges. She was now part of a wealthy royal family and had many new duties. On December 28, 1949, she gave birth to Princess Yasmin Aga Khan in Lausanne, Switzerland. Yasmin weighed 7 pounds, 8 ounces. Rita chose to give birth in Switzerland so Yasmin could have Swiss citizenship, giving her a neutral nationality. The birth was a major event, reported around the world. Yasmin was showered with gifts, including a gold rattle from the Aga Khan III, Ali's father. Despite this happiness, Rita faced harsh criticism. The press mocked her for gaining 55 pounds during her pregnancy, which didn't match her glamorous image. She also struggled with royal traditions, like relying on nannies to raise Yasmin, something she didn't like. Rita often broke royal rules so she could spend time with her daughter. Rita found it hard to adjust to her new role. She was expected to learn Arabic, study the Quran, and wear a hijab in certain situations. These things were very different from her American upbringing. In 1950, she went on a 3-month tour of East Africa with Ali. This trip, called the Champagne Safari by the press, showed how different they were. Rita felt out of place in royal life. The idea of polygamy, though Ali didn't take other wives, was unsettling to her. She also hated how every part of her life from her clothes to her behavior, was judged. Language was another problem. Most people in her social circle spoke French, which she struggled to learn. Giving up acting left her feeling lost, as she missed her career and purpose. Ali's affairs soon ruined their marriage. Just a year after they married, in June 1950, Ali was seen dancing with actress Joan Fontaine at a Paris nightclub, the same place where he had met Rita. Rita was devastated, as she was at home taking care of Yasmin. This wasn't the only time Ali cheated. Rumors linked him to many women, including Pamela Churchill and model Bettina Graziani. Once, he was photographed with several women on the French Riviera while Rita was in America. The final straw came when Ali had a public affair with Olivia de Havilland, Joan Fontaine's sister. In early 1951, Rita left Ali and returned to the U.S. with Yasmin. Back in Hollywood, she faced problems. Columbia Pictures demanded $150,000 because she had broken her contract to marry Ali. Rita had also spent most of her money during the marriage, leaving her nearly broke. She needed work and agreed to star in Affair in Trinidad, 1952, her first film in years. The studio used her personal drama to promote the movie, calling it "There Never Was a Woman Like Rita." Back in the arms of Glenn Ford. The film was a hit, but Rita struggled. She was depressed, started drinking heavily, and often showed up late to work. At the same time, she fought Ali for custody of Yasmin, which made her life even harder. The custody battle over Yasmin became one of the most famous legal fights of the 1950s. Rita filed for divorce on September 2, 1951, citing extreme cruelty, entirely mental in nature. The biggest issue was Yasmin's upbringing. Ali wanted her raised as a Muslim in Europe and the Middle East. Rita, however, said she wanted her daughter to be a normal, healthy American girl, raised as a Christian. Ali offered Rita $1 million, about $10 million today, to raise Yasmin as a Muslim and let her visit him in Europe each year. But Rita refused. She said, "Nothing will make me give up Yasmin's chance to live here in America, among our precious freedoms and habits." The battle became even worse in 1954, when accusations of neglect led a judge to temporarily place Yasmin and her half-sister, Rebecca, in foster care. Ali accused Rita of being an alcoholic and mentally unstable, while Rita said Ali's lifestyle was harmful to Yasmin. The press followed every twist, making the fight even more stressful for Rita. Finally, in 1955, they reached an agreement. Rita won primary custody, and Yasmin was to be raised Christian in the U.S., while Ali got 2 months of visitation each year. The fight left deep scars. Rita's reputation suffered, and she continued to struggle with alcohol and depression. Ali pulled away from Yasmin's life. For Yasmin, the public fight shaped her deeply and inspired her later work in helping others. Rita Hayworth's childhood was really tough. Something really bad happened to her when she was just 12 years old. Her dad, Eduardo, started doing things to her that a father should never do to his daughter. This went on for a long time, and it really hurt Rita deep down. Rita and her dad were dancers. They would go around performing together at different places. But behind the scenes, Eduardo was being very mean to Rita. He made her stop going to school when she was only 14. He dressed her up in grown-up clothes and taught her dances that weren't okay for a young girl. This bad stuff happened almost every day, sometimes more than once. It was extra confusing for Rita because Eduardo wasn't just hurting her. He was also her dance partner and the person in charge of her career. This made Rita feel scared, but also like she had to depend on him. Rita's mom, Volga, kind of knew something was wrong. She tried to help by sleeping in the same bed as Rita when they were at home. But this didn't really fix the problem. When Rita and Eduardo went on trips to dance, Volga couldn't protect her daughter. Volga might have felt like she couldn't do much to stop Eduardo. She had given up her own dancing career to marry him, and maybe she was worried about what would happen if she spoke up. It's really sad to think about how Rita and her mom must have felt during this time. But Rita's father wasn't the only person who controlled her in a bad way. Harry Cohn, the head of Columbia Pictures, controlled Rita Hayworth's career and life for 20 years. It all started in 1937 when he signed her to a 7-year contract. Right away, he decided to change everything about her. He gave her a new name, changing Margarita Carmen Cancino to Rita Hayworth. He made her go through painful treatments to raise her hairline and make her look less ethnic. He also made her dye her black hair to the red color that became her signature look. Cohn didn't just control her career, he also interfered in her personal life. When she started dating Orson Welles in 1941, he tried to break them up because he thought it would hurt her image. He even hired private detectives to follow her and report back to him. In 1946, when her photo was used on an atomic bomb, she wanted to protest. Cohn stopped her, calling it unpatriotic. One of the most disturbing things Cohn did was bug her dressing room. Hayworth said he installed hidden microphones so he could listen to her private conversations. She couldn't even relax or talk freely because she was always worried someone was listening. She also believed he bugged the sound stages where she worked, so he could hear what she said to others. This made her feel paranoid and isolated. To cope, she turned to alcohol, which later became a serious problem. Cohn was also known for trying to force actresses into sexual relationships. Hayworth refused him from the beginning. When she was just 18 and new at Columbia, he made his first move, but she said no. He kept trying over the years, and in 1946, after Gilda made her a star, he even tried to attack her in his office. She fought him off and escaped. Her refusal made him angry. He punished her by giving her exhausting work schedules and fining her for small mistakes. In 1948, she was fined over $12,000 for minor issues. Despite everything, Hayworth stood her ground. She told co-star Glenn Ford that she would rather die than give in to Cohn. Other actresses admired her courage and saw her as a role model for standing up to him. Cohn also exploited her financially. Even when she was one of the biggest stars in the world, she was underpaid. In 1937, she earned $250 a week. By 1946, after Gilda, she was only making $3,000 a week, far less than stars at other studios. Cohn also made money by loaning her to other studios. When she worked on Blood and Sand in 1941, Columbia got $50,000, but she only got $450 a week. The studio also made millions from her image. Her famous pin-up photo during World War II was sold everywhere, but she didn't get any money from it. Even when her picture was put on the atomic bomb tested at Bikini Atoll, she wasn't asked or paid. Hayworth tried to fight back. In 1947, she went on strike to demand better pay and treatment. Cohn responded by suspending her without pay and threatening to replace her with younger actresses. Financially strained, she had no choice but to return under the same unfair conditions. She later said, "Harry Cohn thought of me as one of the people he could exploit and make a lot of money." The toll of this exploitation was immense. Hayworth developed insomnia, anxiety, and depression. She drank more heavily as the pressure from Cohn and the studio system grew. By the early 1950s, she was struggling with her mental health, which affected both her career and her personal life. Despite her immense success and the millions she earned for Columbia, She faced financial difficulties in her later years. She received no residuals from her films, and mismanagement of her finances left her struggling in retirement. In her final years, as she battled Alzheimer's disease, she couldn't afford proper care. Rita Hayworth's fight with Alzheimer's disease was a sad and slow journey that started in ways no one could understand. In the late 1950s, when she was 40, people began noticing strange changes in her. On the set of her movie Separate Tables in 1958, she kept forgetting her lines and needed several tries to get through even easy scenes. Her co-star Burt Lancaster thought she was just nervous, but the problem kept getting worse. By the early 1960s, her behavior was hard to ignore. During the filming of The Money Trap in 1963, she got so upset with the director that she screamed and walked off the set. Everyone assumed she was acting out because of her drinking, as she had been known for heavy alcohol use since the 1940s. In 1966, at a press event for her film The Poppy Is Also a Flower, Rita looked lost and confused. Reporters noticed she couldn't answer basic questions about her role. Gossip magazines jumped to the same conclusion, blaming her drinking. Even her close family and friends believed alcohol was the cause. Her daughter, Yasmin, thought the same thing, but it wasn't. Years later, doctors realized these were the first signs of Alzheimer's disease, though at the time, people didn't know much about it. As the 1970s went on, Rita's condition became worse. By 1972, she couldn't remember enough lines to take leading roles anymore. Her last major film was The Wrath of God. The director had to use cue cards and take multiple shots to get her scenes done. Her struggles became even more visible in 1974 when she appeared on The Carol Burnett Show. Viewers saw her forgetting cues and looking blank on screen. Carol Burnett had to gently guide her through the performance. One of the saddest moments came in 1976, when Rita was supposed to present an award at the Emmy Awards. Backstage, she couldn't remember why she was there or what she was supposed to do. The organizers had to replace her, and she was quietly sent home. By 1977, she couldn't live alone anymore. She went to a hospital for help with her drinking. But even when she stopped drinking, her mind kept getting worse. Her doctors were confused, not realizing Alzheimer's was the cause. In 1980, Rita was finally diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Her daughter Yasmin shared the news publicly in 1981 to help people understand the disease. At the time, very few people knew about Alzheimer's. The news made headlines. Rita became one of the first celebrities connected to the disease, and her story brought much-needed attention to it. Even President Ronald Reagan mentioned her courage in sharing her diagnosis. Soon after, funding for Alzheimer's research increased, and more people started to learn about the disease. Yasmin dedicated herself to raising awareness and money for research. In 1983, she held the first Rita Hayworth Gala, raising over $1 million for Alzheimer's research. She organized these events every year, and they became a big success. Over time, they raised tens of millions of dollars to help fight the disease. As Rita's condition worsened, Yasmin stayed by her side. In 1981, she became Rita's legal guardian and moved her to New York to care for her. By 1983, Rita didn't recognize faces anymore, not even her own reflection. Yasmin did everything she could to make her mother comfortable, visiting daily and reading to her. But the disease continued to take its toll. In 1987, Rita fell into a coma. Yasmin never left her side. On May 14, 1987, Rita Hayworth passed away peacefully, with her daughter holding her hand. Her funeral was filled with Hollywood stars, who came to pay their respects. Yasmin made sure her casket was covered with red roses, Rita's favorite flower. Rita's life ended with sadness, but her legacy didn't. After Rita Hayworth's death in 1987, a hidden treasure was discovered in her belongings. A secret compartment in her makeup case held love letters from Orson Welles. His remarkable find came to light years later, on September 20, 2001, during a Christie's auction in Los Angeles. They are now kept in the Welles collection at the Lilly Library in Indiana. The letters included 8 handwritten notes, totaling 23 pages, most from New York in 1943. Each envelope was addressed to Mrs. Orson Welles and signed by Welles. Alongside the letters were 3 watercolor sketches Welles created, showing a lonely young husband missing his wife because of work. One of the letters, heartfelt and emotional, read, "Dearest Angel Girl, I suppose most of us are lonely in this big world, but we must fall tremendously in love to find it out. The cure is the discovery of our need for company. I mean company in the very special sense we've come to understand since we happened to each other, you and I. The pleasures of human experience are emptied away without that companionship, now that I've known it. Without it, joy is just as unendurable as sorrow. You are my life, my very life. Never imagine your hope approximates what you are to me. Beautiful, precious little baby. Hurry up the sun. Make the days shorter till we meet. I love you. That's all there is to it. Your boy, Orson." The letters captured the love they shared during the early days of their relationship, but they also highlighted the contrast with how their marriage turned out. Passionate at first, but ultimately troubled.